It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, February 12th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is talking Four Nations and Flyers prospects, checking in on them. So much fun stuff today.
Yeah, good mix.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all of your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to get into our Four Nations preview of Team Finland and Team USA. We've got your mailbag questions. First order of business, though, Jacob Peltier is officially on the Flyers roster now. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's good. So now he can practice next week.
Ugh, oh my God.
Well, he still can practice anyhow, technically. So.
Yes, but that poor kid has been through quite a bit over the last 10 days.
We'll see him in another 12 days, Rachel.
Well, hopefully we'll see some good hockey in Four Nations between now and then. Also, congratulations to Flyers prospect Devin Kaplan on Boston University's victory in the Beanpot. He was the second line right wing for BU. He's an alternate captain for that team at the moment. And he had 2 goals in their game where they absolutely demolished Harvard in the semifinals, which was good to see from him. Didn't get on the board in the final versus BC, but it's been a weird year for him.
Yeah, it's been an up and down year. He's scoring more of late, so we'll keep an eye on it, but he needs to definitely pick it up. This would be a good time to pick it up.
Yeah, and of course, with the Beanpot and thinking about Devin Kaplan, start thinking about some of the other prospects in the Flyers system. This is a very crucial time of year to kind of check in on some guys that are signed, some guys that are not signed yet.
Well, there were some draft eligible guys in that game too that the Flyers could draft. So,
Yeah, a very important mini tournament for the upcoming draft as well. You are correct. Jett Luchanko right now, we talked about him not getting traded at the OHL deadline and what kind of impact that could have. And it's been, I would say, mostly okay, but still a little tinge of, God, I wish he would have been traded because Guelph has won 2 of their last 11 games since World Juniors ended, right?
Not bad.
He was named captain recently because of other trades that happened, which is great for him. And I think he relishes that leadership role and it's great for him, but he's actually continued to be pretty successful there in that time span, that 11 games. He's got 8 goals and 8 assists. 5 multi-point games, including 2 goals and 2 assists in a recent game against Saginaw, which they lost. Like, can you imagine having 2 goals and 2 assists in a game and still losing?
Nah, it's brutal. Like, he just needs to get to a better team. Hopefully that happens next year.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, because I understand Guelph is rebuilding and stuff, but like rebuilding at the junior level is even more hit or miss than it is at the NHL level, right?
Yeah, there's no chance they're going to be good next year.
No. And so I think, there is like a certain amount of assumption that he has a bigger chance of sticking with the Flyers next year, just given the Flyers center situation as it currently stands. But that being said, there's still a significant chance that he'd end up in Guelph again next year. And I do not like that option. Russ.
No, nobody should.
Yeah, so he is actually second on the Flyers in terms of the prospects in points per game this season at 1.33. All the different leagues have different numbers of games played, so it's hard to look at.
You can't really equate the other leagues too. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty good for the OHL on a losing
It
team,
is.
I'd say.
On a bad team, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if he was on a winning team, it should be in the 1.5 to 2 range
Right.
at the moment, but I think 1.33 on a bad team is pretty solid for Luchanko. Now, the leader in points per game for Flyers prospects is Denver Barkey. He's got 1.54 points per game at the moment, 63 points in 41 games played. 18 of those points are goals and 45 assists. That is a lot of assists, and it kind of shows his playmaking ability.
It does. He's having a great year. He'll definitely be over next year. I would hope he goes to the Phantoms, and that should be the start for him next year, and that's great. That'll help the Phantoms. That'll help him
Yeah, I think so. And London, unlike Guelph, has clearly had a much better season. They're a
a
super
little,
team,
just a little.
as we've talked about. They've clinched a playoff spot already, and are first in the Midwest division in the OHL this year. So I feel like, with
It's so
Oliver
weird to
Bonk,
hear Midwest, like what, the Midwest of Canada? Like I don't understand what we're
well,
talking about.
I mean, Ontario, there's like multiple provinces east of
I
Ontario,
know. It just you have
Russ.
to admit it sounds weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and Ontario is pretty flippin' big
It
if
is
you
big.
haven't looked at a map
I've
recently.
driven
So,
to a lot of places. I
yeah.
get it.
Yeah. At any rate, he and Oliver Bonk are in a really good position to make
Yes.
a good run, obviously, in the OHL playoffs. Hopefully, they get back to another Memorial Cup. I think that would be really, really good
Yeah, it'd be
for
great.
them. If you're thinking about the Memorial Cup, the hosts of the Memorial Cup this year is Rimouski in the QMJHL,
Yeah,
and
I won't be going to that one.
right, but Flyers prospect Spencer Gill plays on that team, so he's got an automatic bid
Yeah.
to
He's on
the
the host
Memorial Cup,
team,
which is
so that's good for him.
fantastic for
Oh yeah,
him.
it's great
Fan
experience for him.
Yeah, fantastic for us, but their team is also very good. So they've clinched a playoff spot already as well. They're second in their conference. That league has like 2 conferences as opposed to divisions.
Yeah.
But Gill, I think, has had a really good season. I think he's on a a really strong, like, slow and steady development path
Yeah, I think so too.
for defensemen, and I think that's really important for a guy like him who's super tall but super lanky and needs to still put on a bunch of muscle.
Yeah, I think there's like a chance he could be a 4, and that's, and we'll see. We'll know in a couple of years. We'll have a better idea.
Mhm. Right, and he's got 6 goals and 27 assists, this season. Again, real good for a defenseman. 2
Yep.
goals and 4 assists in the last 5 games. So he's had some really good play on a very strong team recently, which I think all of that put together
Yeah,
is
it's all
is
good,
super
and
important.
a Mem Cup appearance will be great.
Yeah, and, there's, like, a ton of other prospects for the Flyers that we could get into, but, these guys, I think, they're at different stages of their
Yes.
development path, and I think it's, like, really interesting to look at them in
Hmm.
those different spots and just kinda get a sense of the Flyers' depth in the long run, especially given the rebuild and what they're trying to do with it right
Yeah, I
now,
think this
and who
shows
could be a
that.
part of it.
Right. I think this shows they have a certain amount that are close. They have a kind of a gap. And
Mhm.
that gap, and you're showing some of the closer ones except for Kaplan. I don't think he's close. Uh,
Right.
but age-wise, you might think that, but yeah. So I look at it and I say, yeah, I understand. This is a good choice of players to go through.
Yeah, so we'll be checking in with the other players in the system. Of course, we've got a whole bunch of other college players that we'll talk about as we get closer to the end of their season and the Frozen Four tournament coming up, which is always a ton of fun. So we will absolutely do that. In the meantime, it's Four Nations season, and we talked about Sweden and Canada yesterday. We're going to talk Finland and USA coming up next.
Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef prepared, dietitian approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. Recently tried their Protein Plus meals, and they were packed with flavor and kept me full throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnNHL50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off free shipping on your first box.
On tomorrow's show, we will be recapping the first game of the tournament between Team Sweden and Team Canada. Man, Sam Ersson looked really good in his goalie gear for Team Sweden. I know we
Yeah.
won't see him play, but still always good to
Hey, you
see.
got to look good on the bench, have your hair
You
right,
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love his pads. Real good look. But excited to see that game. And we will also be having kind of a special crossover episode that I am doing with Laura from Locked On Canadiens and JD from Locked On Sharks. We're going to be looking at the Calder race and fighting for our guys in that battle there. So it should be a good time. Stay tuned for that. So in the Four Nations right now, good to see Travis Konechny was out of the sick bed and onto the ice practicing for Team Canada. And he was there for the media day and the headshots and all of that. The Travi are well represented in Team Canada there. And as we expected, he replaced Sam Bennett on the fourth line
Right.
in drills there. He's also on the second power play unit, as
Right.
many people reported from practice.
So he'll get about 23, 24 seconds of power play time each time.
Listen, on that team, I'll take
I
it,
know.
to be honest.
That's it. That's the reality, though.
Yeah, Jordan Bennington is going to start in net for Team Canada, which is certainly a choice, but I guess.
Well, I would go with Bennington.
Yeah,
I would.
it's kind of like they all have good but not great like abilities on that team as far as the goal.
Yeah, but he gets fiery, and if he gets annoyed, he can go on a little run. So I get going with Bennington first. I do.
With John Tortorella on the coaching staff for Team USA, Mike Sullivan, his friend, is of course the head coach there, but
John will be wearing a suit.
Yeah, well, he was looking. It's really funny because like some of the USA guys are so huge, and he looks so tiny next to them on the ice.
And he had like his snowsuit on ice thing on the other day. That was funny.
It was very funny. John Hines and David Quinn are the other assistant coaches there. Yeah. Austin Matthews is, of course, team captain with Matt Tkachuk and Charlie McAvoy, the assistant captains.
And they had the 1988 out with the 1980 guys yesterday. That was
good. They did. It's a lot of fun. Jake Sanderson, as we mentioned.
And I wanted to mention, and Guy Gaudreau's there coaching too.
Right. That was the next thing I was going to say.
Okay.
So it was good to see him there at Team USA practice. And on the Finland side of things, as we know, Rasmus Ristolainen isn't going to be able to play, but Senators defenseman Nick Fontempalo is playing in his place. That's a pretty solid replacement there. Not as good as Risto in my opinion.
A little bit of a drop off, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But they've just had so many injuries. Apparently there was only 11 guys on ice for their first practice. That Amanda Stein from the Devils media group reported that. And it was just like brutal for them. But the good news is that Mikko Rantanen seems to be good to go for them, which is a very huge factor there.
Yeah, they need him.
They absolutely do. So looking at their lineup thus far, that top line with Rantanen and Barkov and Lehkonen, like I'd take that.
Oh yeah, that's a tough line. It's got a good mix. So yeah, both the top two lines are really good if Laine's got his head on straight. He's been slumping lately, but still their power play is going to be great. But they're missing a lot. Their defense is weak.
Yeah, and I would say so that second line with Patrick Laine on it is centered by Sebastian Aho, like
Yeah.
obviously the better Sebastian Aho,
Yeah.
and Rupe Hintz is the other winger on that line. That is a very good second line.
It is. I mean, their 4 lines are good. They're just I worry about them defensively.
Yeah, I think so, and obviously that's where Risto not being there is a problem. I mean, Oli Mata, who you made a joke about the
I
last
did.
time,
No more
like
not doing it again.
yeah, yeah, you know, he's fine, but if he's, like, on your second pairing D, I'm like, that's a pretty weak top 4
It
in
is.
my opinion.
Yeah,
I
it is.
mean, he's not the worst, but, like, Asa Lindell as is probably your number 1 defenseman on that team, and he's really good. I just like the rest of the defense
It would have been
is
him and and Heiskanen. Like, that would have been
yeah,
a better
yeah.
thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think Yusei Saros is probably gonna play that
Yeah, I
first
would say
game
so.
there. I would say I would put UPL in for the other game, but who knows what'll
He may
happen. It
not.
might be
They may just go straight Saros. It wouldn't shock me.
I know, I know. Like Lincoln is good, but
He's had
I
a
think
really
just
good year, but he doesn't have the gravitas outside of what
exactly,
he's doing.
exactly. Yeah, that's why I would put Pekka Luukkonen in
Right.
if they decide they don't want Saros
Well, it's a big
for any.
change. Saros is short.
Mhm.
Pekka Lukin is the opposite of short.
Right.
I interviewed him once, and someone took a picture, and I looked like I was
Oh,
5'2".
man.
It was bad.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I had a class once when I was in college with a 7'2", basketball player, and that was very upsetting on a
It
daily
is.
basis
Oh,
to
yeah.
be near him. Um, yeah, looking at Team USA, that top line is just tremendous. Like
It
Jack
is.
Eichel, of course, centering with Matthew Tkachuk and Kyle Connor. I just the fact that Austin Matthews is on the second line, and this is like based on rushes from
Yeah.
Monday's practice. So
It
things
doesn't
can
matter.
change.
Their top 6 doesn't really matter. Like,
It
you know what I
does
mean?
not. Yeah, so we've got, Jack Hughes and Jake Gensel on the wings on that second line with Austin Matthews, which is not too shabby, I'd say.
Not too shabby, although, again, I think there's too much Gensel love here. Me personally, I would rather have Boldy up there, but if they're gonna keep Boldy on the right side, then Kachuk's the next
Yeah,
best guy. I
like
get it with
Brady?
the speed. Yeah,
Would you
Brady.
put Brady up?
I would. I get it, speed factor here, but I don't think Gensel is as good as either one of the other 2 guys that I mentioned. I know he's having a great year, but just my feeling.
Yeah, and, as we surmised, Chris Kreider and Dylan Larkin are kind of the rotating guys, and one of them is gonna get scratched. I
It'll
think
probably
it's
be
Kreider.
Kreider. It'll be Kreider to start.
Yeah,
Larkin is a tremendous player. The fact that
I know,
he's not even getting to play center because Trocheck's so good on faceoffs
I know,
is
I
just
know.
it's just crazy. And Brock Nelson's really good on faceoffs too. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
That whole
That 4th
forward
line
line
is, like, all
could
centers all
score
the
as good as any
yeah,
line on any other team.
I know. This is gonna be a really interesting tournament, though, for Brock Nelson, I think. Given all
Oh
the
yeah.
trade rumors that are out there, it's like he doesn't wanna get hurt, A, the Islanders certainly don't want him to get
No.
hurt. So that is, like, the risky thing about him playing in this tournament relative to the trade deadline, right?
Yeah, it is, but it's good to see him getting some due because he's been a really good player for a long time and sometimes doesn't really get
Definitely.
mentioned with a lot of these other players. So it's nice for him.
Yeah. Now looking at the blue line for Team USA, Slavin and Fox as your top pairing, I'll take that.
Yeah, that's okay.
I honestly love that second pairing of Werenski and
Me
McAvoy.
too.
I think that's a really like I like them as a complementary pair.
Again, I don't think there's too much to take away. Either one of these pairings could be the top pairing. So I think this is just the way it's listed, and they'll go with matchups.
Right. And this is where like not having Quinn Hughes
Yeah,
is a little bit of a ding here because like I think Hannafin and Faber are fine as a third pairing on this team, but like having Jake Sanderson as your other option is so much weaker than Quinn Hughes.
yeah. If Hughes were there, I guess Faber just because of age
Faber, right.
would be out. But me personally, I
Mhm.
would take Faber over Hannafin. That's just me personally.
Yeah, but I think complimentary wise, I would put Hannafin, like,
Yeah,
maybe with McAvoy,
yeah,
and that's how it would work out better anyway in terms of pairings.
yeah. But in the end, Sanderson is a mistake-free, really good defenseman to be able to use if somebody's dinged up. So that's still a great
Mhm.
luxury.
Absolutely, and Connor Hellebuck, of course, like,
Oh my God. The year he's
who
having,
else?
he already
Yeah,
won. Like, you don't even have to worry about who's going to win the Vezina. It doesn't matter who the
nope.
other guys are.
Like, I'm sure the betting line is, like, 0.5% or
Yeah,
something like that
you know,
return.
minus 1,200 or something. Like, it's
Yeah,
a lot.
something like that. But yeah, I assume he'll play in that first game between USA and Finland. But of course, we're going to wish Coach Tortorella luck in that one since Risto is out. I would definitely go Finland if Risto is still playing. But now I can
I wouldn't. I go
Team USA
USA. I just stick
allegiance.
USA. You know what? All those other players are dead to me.
Okay. All right. It's a really fun conversation to have
It
about
is.
like who you root for in these situations.
It
And
is.
it'll be a good lead up to the Olympics
It will be.
next year, and how this tournament goes is going to have a huge effect. So excited to continue to watch along. In the meantime, y'all have some excellent mailbag questions to answer on some of our recent episodes, including the one on Scott Laughton. We are going to talk about all of that coming up next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, and each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein. So that gives you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber. They're better for you with unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. I personally love the no shells variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for your busy days and to have at my desk while working. And I recently had some friends over for a movie night. And instead of popcorn, we passed around like a whole bunch of varieties of wonderful pistachios. And we loved all of them, but the hits were definitely the wonderful pistachios chili roasted with no shells and the sea salt and vinegar no shells varieties. Those were definitely the biggest hits. So delicious and healthy too. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. These little green wonders pack a protein punch. So get snackin and get crackin with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Digging into our mailbag here, Jay Matthews commented about Rodrigo Abols. Is it just me or does Torts clearly like Abols? And they commented, I like Abols, so this could be confirmation bias, which we love him too.
We
So
do. We've liked him.
no lies
Torts
there.
has spoken positively about him at least once. He likes him because he likes the fact that he when he goes down the ice, he forechecks. He does
Yep.
play that kind of brand of hockey. He will go to the net. So yes, he does like him.
Yeah, I think it's especially his doggedness on the forecheck that
Yeah.
is appealing because you're right. That's exactly what Torts wants to see. And it's something I appreciate about his game in Lehigh Valley. And so
Yep.
when he got called up, I thought it was something that he would definitely bring to the table.
If you
So
forecheck, it
very good to see.
translates. It
Yep,
does.
it does. And it creates opportunities for other people too.
It does.
So that's an important aspect of his game for sure. Now, on Scott Laughton, we had an episode yesterday where we talked about a potential trade for him, and there were
Not
mixed
just us. Like
feelings.
there's a million reports about Scott Laughton out there.
There are, and like the various deals, and who could potentially be returns from the various teams, including the Jets and the Leafs. And so there's so many different rumors out there. And y'all had some feedback on kind of both sides of the fence. There were a few people that were like, don't trade him, he's too important. Or they were saying, don't trade him because his value has dropped too much to make it worth it to trade versus what we would lose in the locker room,
Well,
which I
that's not
thought was
true
an interesting.
because I understand you would say that because maybe the defense has dropped a little bit. Teams are looking at the salary that they could fit in and the good salary
Mhm.
for next year. And so they know what Scott Laughton is. Like, it's always going to go up and down a little bit, but no, I don't think his value has dropped, to be honest.
Yeah, so we had several commenters talk about that in terms of, the value in that Briere definitely, it seems like he still wants a first rounder for Lawton, and that's his price, and like that value may not be there. And we said as much that maybe that value is not there, but maybe a first further down the road is something that
I'll liken it to
a
this.
team.
You know how when people are selling a house, how often does a house sell for a list? I watch all these other programs and
Depends
they
on the
all
market, but yeah.
mostly, right. Once in a blue moon, you'll find that 1 out of 10 where they actually get list. But most of the time they've gotten talked down a bit.
Yeah, I would say so. But still, a lot of really good thoughts about it, and we'll
Mhm.
continue to have these discussions as we get closer to the trade deadline. Seamus commented, Cam York probably cost himself 1 to 1.5 million a year with the season he's having. What do you think about that? And his
I
next
think he has
contract?
cost himself some money because he's not in a higher tax bracket now. Because if he were scoring points, he would get like
Mhm.
over 6.5, but he's not there. So somewhere between 6 and 6.5 is probably the number.
Yeah, I think it'll depend on term as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
I think he'll get more. I mean, this is like Captain Obvious, but he'll get more money per year if he takes a shorter deal.
Sure,
And
but I don't think he's looking for a shorter deal.
I know, and that's like I think it's an interesting gamble for him
Hmm.
because this commenter is correct. He does not deserve the higher end
No.
contract. I mean, I might even say he's in the 5.5 kind of range right now. But
Yeah, I
the
think with
problem
the
is
cap going up, I think that's a
I
pie in the
know.
sky. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the second half of my thought is that given the cap
Okay.
and also the fact that he's going to be a top 4 defenseman on this team, that just 6 is kind of your baseline
Right.
for that. So I think though if you're looking at straight value in a vacuum, I think he's kind of 5.5-ish cheap.
No, I agree with that as far as that goes.
Yeah. So we'll see, and we'll see if and for how much they sign him for, but it definitely won't be till the off season, and it's going to be I think one of the more challenging negotiations.
It will.
We had a discussion earlier this week about tanking and whether the
Hmm.
Flyers should do it or they should quiet tank.
Hmm.
It as I have used that term as opposed to quiet quitting. There's quiet tanking in sports,
Hmm.
and how you do that. And so Brian commented, "No one intentionally tanks in hockey. They just suck or don't suck as much. It's a hard balancing act." The most recent team I could see as an example of doing it right, but still isn't quite it is the Devils, which is an interesting thought. But this person, Brian says, don't be a Sabres or Ducks. And I was like, that I can
No,
absolutely get
that's fair.
behind.
But look how I think the Blackhawks have been masterful with it. To be honest, again, they could bring up Frank Nazar, who's over a point a game in the AHL. They had him up early in the year. They're not calling him up.
No, and that's quiet tanking, right?
Correct.
Where the logical thing would be to bring him up because you're
Right.
right, he's been playing well, but why do you want him exposed to like the losing all the
Right.
time, right?
Right.
And I think that the marginal increase you would get is not worth it, especially given the lottery situation and this year's
Yeah.
draft. And I think,
I mean, they're
you know,
guaranteeing themselves a second overall pick. Like, that's great.
mhm, yeah, at minimum, right?
Yeah,
So
at minimum.
like the Blackhawks are going to be real good in 2 years, I would
Yeah,
say.
they will.
Yeah. So I think there's a fair point to that. Meanwhile, John says, tank, baby, tank. We need to draft a couple of talented, tough, and big centers this year.
Don't disagree.
Yeah. So along those lines, Mike sent us an email saying, how many and which centers in this draft would you say are better than Jett Luchanko and or have a higher upside?
I'd say 3 or 4. That's what I
Do
would
you
say.
have which ones?
No,
Are
I'm
you
not
not, you
giving
don't
them.
want to go there?
No, I don't want to go there yet because I really have to kind of match it up against them and see. But off the top of my head, I think 3 or 4. But I don't want to be that definitive yet. Sorry.
No, that's totally fair. I think we'll obviously get to that as we get closer to the
I
draft
mean,
and
obviously
say for
James
sure.
Hagan's is a yes, right? So that's,
Mhm.
I'll give you that.
That's one of them. I think the Flyers are still in the 6th slot in Tankathon at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's not a completely impossible thing that the Flyers could move up. They could also
No.
move down because
Right.
somebody below them moves up. So
When I looked the other day, their highest percentage, I think, was 7th, like
it's
54% or
7.5
something.
now, I think.
Yeah. I think it was 54% that they were going to come 7th or something where I saw it.
Yes, yeah. Because if you add up the percentages of everybody
Right.
below them, it's
Right.
well above the 7.5%
And
chance they
usually those
have.
numbers are pretty good within a range of 1 or 2.
Mhm, mhm. Now, what's interesting to me right now is that the Pittsburgh Penguins are literally 1 spot below the Flyers
Yeah.
on the list right now, and I'm like, that when was the last time that happened?
The last time they've had all these top players,
Yeah, it's just
we
like
can rattle off all the first rounders for
Pittsburgh
that first
was
overall
so
picks.
good. Right, but Pittsburgh was so good for so long. To see
No, I
them
know.
this high up in the conversation is kinda weird. So,
Listen,
that's the
The Predators are gonna be there too, so
Yep, yep, right now they're in the 3 spot behind San Jose and
they
Chicago,
didn't expect
so
that when the season started.
nobody did, I think.
No, not like that. No way.
No, no. Alright, that will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. Tomorrow on the show, we'll have that Calder conversation, crossover that I am doing. Plus, we'll have Sweden versus Canada results. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. You can send in your mailbag questions on the Flyers or any other topic right now via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.